first set will be played on Neo Planet S. Spawning in the top right-hand position as the Blue Terran, playing for SK Telecom T1. His name is Fantasy.
His opponent, the ace Terran player from KT Rolster, spawning as Red Terran on the left bottom corner of the map. His name is Flash. Flash actually made a misclick in the beginning of the game. I don't know if you guys saw that, but he put all the SCV to the command center instead of mining right away. So that's why he's a little bit delayed when it comes to the minerals, which is for like, what, half a second, 1 second maybe?
I don't think it's going to really affect
It's not going to really matter. So, like you said, you wanted to talk about this before the games began, so I'll let you have it.
Overall, SK Telecom has generally defeated KT Rolster. They have the higher winning percentage here, but the games have generally been really close. Nerf Flash's ruler, it's Mba, coming from some of the foreigner fans watching StarCraft today. Flash is, of course, notoriously known for using a ruler to make sure his setup in the boot is as close to possible as it is in the training houses at KT Rolster.
You know, what's funny is that just yesterday I was reading Gold Rush's interview that he did about a year ago, and he was talking about how he admires Flash because he wants to make sure if he loses the games it's because he didn't play as well, not because there was some technical issue or some setup issue before going into the match. He doesn't want to blame on the fact that he left his keyboard 1 centimeter to the left or the mouse didn't feel right, while there was no technical issue with the mouse or the keyboard.
I like that, man. It's basically, you know, he wants to make sure that the only person he can put the blame on for losing is himself.
Yes.
Now, looking at the build order openings here between the players, looks like Flash has opted to go for a command center first, while Fantasy just opening up the standard racks, getting the gas behind it. And we'll probably see him go for a fast factory here, get some maybe Hellions out, or go into that Hellbat.
Who cares about Hellions, man? It's like make two, and then yes, you can harass around, but Hellbats are what you go for these days, man.
That's where it's at, and ooh, Fantasy doing a pretty good job trying to block that SCV. Will he get it? Yes! With some excellent micro. Fantasy picks off that scouting SCV, and the only thing that's been revealed is the barracks.
Now, we do have a Reaper behind us, so Fantasy is going to get a nice scouting inside the main base. Also, given the fact that Flash went for the command center first, so he's not going to have enough Marines out in time to block the Reaper from coming up the ramp.
Yeah, and it looks like Flash is opening this up with a Marine. He doesn't have the gas to go for Reaper yet. May get one afterwards. We have Fantasy putting down his command center at the natural now. So he'll be able to start mining from there a little bit faster. And we already have Flash making his orbital on that natural that he just finished building his main base here. And this Reaper is going to go over here, scout Flash in a little bit, and it may actually be able to do a little bit of damage here depending on the time that it gets there. Alright, so we have a factory follow-up here from Flash.
Both players, actually.
Yeah, both players, indeed. Reactor on the way as well for Fantasy here. Oh, interesting. So the Reaper decided to just, you know, look all around for proxy locations instead of go directly to his opponent's base there. It looks like he is more concerned about hidden tech than knowing exactly what his opponent's up to in his main base.
Yeah, well, that's why Flash is so dangerous. When you actually look at Flash, you know, he's a really greedy player. He loves to go for the third command center first, or sometimes he loves to go for 3CC early on in the game, and that's the reason why Flash is so scary, because if you always expect greedy play from Flash, one of those times he's gonna try to cheat you with some hidden tech around the map, and those are the times when Flash's cheese works out well because the opponent does not expect it.
Yep. Alright, Starport on the way along with that second gas from Fantasy. And we do have the second gas as well for our KT player. Moving that command center down to the natural. He's going to build a bunker there as well, just to make sure he's safe. Fantasy following this up with a pair of Hellions. So I was right, he is making Hellions, but ooh, look at this. We have a Tech Lab add-on. Flash is making an early tank here.
How do you feel about using only siege tanks at the natural mineral line and the main mineral line to defend against the Hellbats? Do you think that's the answer, or do you think it has to be something different?
Well, it's interesting that he's making the tanks so early, because this is not what you see normally.
Yeah.
It could lead to maybe some type of timing attack. Oh, but look at this. The proxy Starport has been scouted by Fantasy. Like I always say, can't hide proxies from the Kessler players.
Yeah, well, even if you look at it previously, Fantasy actually left the Reaper over there, and he saw the SCV moving in the right bottom direction. He did not see the SCV arrive inside the main base or the natural. So he told himself there is something out there on the map. Flash is telling himself, well, I'm just going to lift it and then go home.
Yep.
It's all good.
All right, so looks like Fantasy is going to send his Viking over there potentially.
Ooh.
Oh, bit of a skirmish here. Fantasy's got to get out of there. That tank's got way too much armor and health for the Hellbats to really do anything to them. And look at what we have in Fantasy's production tab. He's going for the Hellbats.
I'm not even excited anymore because this is a norm when it comes to Terrans these days.
Okay, so Flash is saying, all right, I will get this stuff right out. But oh no,
look at
Fantasy,
getting inside
huge
the main
mistake.
base.
The 3 Hellions are going to get in there, and the SCV is being pulled off the mineral line instantly from Flash. But it looks like he will lose
One more
of them.
shot, and it killed a lot of SCVs, but no, targeted the wrong SCV. But remember, those SCVs are really low in HP, and we do have the Hellbat follow up behind us. Now, Flash, it was his little mistake, but because he went for siege tanks, he was able to kill the Hellions relatively easily.
Yeah, indeed he was. And this starport still, it looks like that scan just may have barely gotten a view of the double medevac Hellbats moving out. He saw it, but will he be prepared for it? Will he be able to control the damage that's going to eventually come from these Hellbats here? He does have the bunker. He does have a siege tank. He's building a second bunker at this natural Fantasy plane, Flash plane, extremely defensive against this style.
Well, you need to if you only have siege tanks to defend against the Hellbat.
Oh, I don't think that matters. The Hellbat's still doing a good amount of damage. A few SCVs get picked off here. There's some really low ones as well. Will we see a drop there? Looks like we will, but picking up instantly and... Ooh, actually a little bit of a mistake there from Fantasy. It could have easily saved that
one of the medevacs. Now, here's the problem for Fantasy. Yes, he's doing a great job, but as the time goes on, Fantasy is going to have a lot stronger army because he's been making siege tanks throughout the whole game. So behind this, the harassment, yes, is fantastic from Fantasy. It's going to keep Flash's economy really low, but he needs to start following up with siege tanks of his own.
Yeah, that's true. And this is actually a really interesting way that Flash is dealing with the Hellbat drops. He's pretty much saying, all right, I'm just going to not even worry about them. I'm going to get a lot of very defensive units, and then I'll have a much stronger army in the mid-game and use that to defeat my opponent with a timing attack.
Yeah, and if you saw a few days ago, there was a TBT where the Terran player went for amazing Hellbat drops. It worked out fantastic, except it didn't even matter because the opponent had 2 more siege tanks, and he was able to carry the advantage throughout the whole game. Today, if you look at the unit composition between the 2 players, yes, Flash did not go for the Hellbats, but he has up to 6, maybe even 7 siege tanks right now.
This is so cool and so interesting the way that Flash is dealing with the style. He's completely countering which was once thought to be like something really hard to deal with, the Hellbat drops in TBT, but he's pretty much completely countered them. He's lost only a total of 8 SCVs this entire game, and his economy is in great shape. He's getting the 3rd command center that's about to complete, and he's got a lot of siege tanks in his army.
So the key for Fantasy right now is how do I delay the push from my opponent, and how do I recover the siege tank loss that I have right now?
I mean, Fantasy is going to have to find a way to either do some damage or delay time.
Marine versus Marine.
There will be no true winners here.
Well, there is one true winner.
One true winner. It's because he had the high ground and got that first attack off.
It seems like Fantasy actually got the first shot with a Viking, but it's a 1-1 situation. The Max trying to get inside the main base, but that's too many Marines over there.
I don't think Fantasy is going to be able to get into this main base. This shell just cannot be cracked. Flash is playing just way too defensive.
Yeah, and Flash is not afraid to put up a lot of turrets if he knows that there are some medevacs harassing around the map. That's the reason why Fantasy, after seeing the number of turrets, he's not going to risk it at this point.
I mean, look at that defense there. 2 turrets, a bunker full of Marines, a siege tank. I mean, like, you don't normally see that in this position at the natural in TBT, but, you know, Flash is using it perfectly to counter what Fantasy wants to do.
Whiplash. This is a guy who built up to 70 turrets back in Brood War to defend against a 3rd player. He's not afraid to put up those defenses at the natural and the main base. You know, turrets, I'll just make tons of it in my main base just to make sure that my SCVs do not die.
Well, that's a great point there. Fantasy finally getting in here, doing a little bit of damage, but Tank going to get picked off, actually. So Fantasy moving in here, doing a little bit of damage, but eventually these Hellbats will get picked off here. They got a lot of health. Oh, no! Big mistake coming from Flash there. He's lost up to 17 workers there. He should have just ran away those SCVs. Feeling like maybe getting a little bit too confident there.
Flash, those aren't Hellions. That was a Hellbat.
Even though the defense is still good against the Hellbats, you can't underestimate their power.
And now this is where Hellbats can also excel at, because now he has up to 21 Hellbats. He's making 4 at a time, and that's great against bio units. Yes, it doesn't deal that much damage against the siege tanks, but all Fantasy has to do is get his own siege tanks. But look at this in the production tab. Do you see
double armory? Double armory, man.
Double armory? Look at Flash's production tab. 2 battle cruisers.
What? We have battle cruisers already at this point?
I'm pretty sure I saw that, unless that was the wrong icon.
We're gonna have to wait until we go back to the battle cruiser.
Because I was just surprised for a second. I'm like, was that something else, or did I just see battle cruiser?
If that's true, that would explain why Flash's supply is so low compared to his opponent here. Because it's up to 173 for Fantasy and 149. Yes, you are indeed correct, Supernova Maniac. We have 2 battle cruisers in production.
Even the Korean observer did not catch that. I was like, am I right on this, or am I going crazy because of the 30-minute delay before the game even began today?
Okay, so we have a anti-Hellbat drop into 3 base battlecruiser build from Flash. This is why I love Pro League, man. Every week, the metagame starts to shift. There's always new builds. It's so fresh. There's so much going on, so much constantly changing.
You know what? We've been always saying before we got into Hardwood Swarm, in HOTS, we just hope that they're going to do the balance patch after a few weeks, after looking at the game for such a long time before the metagame evolves. A few days ago, there was a patch note, and now the players are trying to figure out the game even before the balance changed. It's StarCraft 2.
Exactly. Siege tank sieging up here now for Flash. He doesn't want to be attacked by this army. The battle cruisers now out. Will they be revealed to Fantasy yet? He's got the Vikings out in front as well to maintain air superiority over his opponent. It's about 10 Vikings to 5.
And look at this.
Battle cruisers moving in now as well. This is going to force a full retreat from Fantasy. And we now have the Yamato Cannon upgrade being researched by Flash as well. And 6 Widow Mines are being produced by Fantasy. Now he's getting the Tunneling Claw upgrade for them as well, getting his +3 attack, +2 armor turrets going up as well. Fantasy needs to defend against this timing from the battle cruisers, and just delay until the Widow Mines are out in significant numbers.
Yeah, well, I don't think he can save the command center, but his answer is going to be drop those Hellbats inside the SCV line, as those are out of position. And look at this, Flash is going down into this, but the Hellbats ran to the SCVs, 1 going inside the main base.
More battle cruisers appear as well from Flash's army. We have a 3rd medevac, I believe, going into the main base of Flash, and you can't see it. Okay, there we go. There's the drop right now. The SCV is being pulled away at this point, and a lot of Hellbats moving towards the main base.
I really like this.
This is perfect because you know what? Fantasy, he needs the free up supply. Look at that SCV train run, man. They got to get away from those Hellbats. Luckily for Flash, Hellbats are slow. The SCVs are faster.
Yeah, but if you think about it, Flash hasn't been mining for the past minute, and those SCVs are getting clumped. He can't do that. He needs to wait until the Hellbats get taken out.
Okay. Flash defends. He's
now
completing another command center there, and he has taken a 4th expansion. Fantasy as well, grabbing a 4th in the top left-hand position, but the Marauder's going to spot that and scare him away.
Now, look at the gas from Flash. Because of the Hellbats dropping inside the main base, the third base, and the natural at the same time, he hasn't been mining from the gas for a long time, so which means that he could only make few battle cruisers at a time at this point. He has up to 4 out. He's getting a 6th one out at this point.
All right, so this is going to become difficult for Fantasy the longer the game goes on. Deal with the increasing Viking and battle cruiser count. Will the Widow Mines be able to completely counter them? That's the question here. Can Fantasy get in a proper position with them in order to snipe off the slow-moving battle cruisers or the Vikings?
Well, I like this Hellbat drop from Fantasy once again because he's just trying to buy as much time as possible and trying to get the ground army out of position so that he could at least eat something up.
In addition to that, we have Fantasy taking the gold base in the middle of the map here because he's been thwarted in every other position. So now trying to control the center of the map here. And, ooh, nice drop from here from Fantasy. Going to go ahead and kill off more of these SCVs here. And could have gotten a few more, wasn't paying full attention. But up to 31 workers have been killed so far. Actually kind of low if you think about it in a big Hellbat game, but
I'm not too sure about this. That's a lot of Widow Mines, however.
Flash, he's got to move back. He can't let the Widow Mines do a lot of damage. The Widow Mines completely decimating almost all of the Vikings, but the problem is it's still not enough. The battle cruisers remain. All of the Widow Mines are low on cooldown. The scans revealing the Widow Mines Fantasy, he needs the micros units. He's not backing out those Widow Mines. What is he going to do now to counter these air units?
Yeah, well, he does have some turrets back at his main base, and look at this. He killed 2 battlecruisers using the Widow Mines and the Vikings, so quote-unquote, he bought himself a little more time. And before, remember what I told you, he couldn't mine from the gas, which means that he has less economy flowing in for a few seconds, which means that we don't have a critical number of battlecruisers anymore.
Those SCVs are just wasting their time trying to repair that command center. I feel it's going to eventually fall here. The combined DPS of the tanks and battlecruisers, nothing to deal with them. And now we have Fantasy trying to get a few Vikings out, but oh, nice, Yamada Cannon, I believe, picks off one of those. But there's just not enough anti-air for Fantasy. Now he's trying to make some Ravens here. That could work.
More splash damage.
Oh man, you need the splash.
I really like the fact that he went for the Widow Mines. The micro wasn't perfect, but it killed 2 of the battlecruisers, and the rest of them were low. Most of them were low in HP. So that's the reason why after Flash won the battle, he couldn't push in because of the number of turrets at the natural of Fantasy.
All right, Fantasy's taking his 4th base here, but you know, we always talk about this in TVT. It comes down to who has more bases. You need to always have an economic advantage over your opponent and keep that until the late game and eventually starve your opponent. It looks like Flash is slowly doing that. He's taken the bottom right base, and as long as Fantasy can hold this base on the bottom right,
well, I don't think he can hold it right now because that's too much Vikings, and if he tries to engage with the siege tanks over here, the battlecruisers are going to tear it apart, so he needs to give this up.
Yeah,
at least he needs to cancel.
Yeah, he can't even save that command center. It's just going to fall down. And this is becoming a big issue for Fantasy. He needs to take another expansion, but every time he takes an expansion, Fantasy thwarts it.
Yeah, well, I think the answer should have been Fantasy taking multiple bases at the same time and only throwing away the ones that he needed to. Because Flash is on top of his game every single time. Once that Flash, once he goes for a different command center, Fantasy can at least save the one, for example, at the left top corner or middle of the map. That's what Fantasy needs to do if he wants to take extra bases in this game.
Looking at the production tab here, we have Ravens now on the way for Flash.
And he has the upgrades.
He does, but Fantasy building 6 Vikings at a time. He's building a lot of Widow Mines as well. He wants to get just a very powerful air and ground anti-air army. Will it be enough? That it remains to be seen here. The supplies are pretty close.
There's 3 more battlecruisers coming out by Flash right now, but if Fantasy can hit a critical timing and get all the battlecruisers, they can still try to win the game.
The Viking count's very similar now. The tanks from Flash are going to eventually fall here.
Yeah.
Out of position. There's nothing to really do about that Fantasy Flash can do about
those.
those.
Have Ravens right now. Where's the Secret Missile? Flash getting the Secret Missile first, but Fantasy also going for one of his own.
The Widow Mines now moving below the battlecruisers. Can they getting a few good shots off? A few of them very low on health.
But one battlecruiser will get taken out because of the Viking is in position. Will the second one go down?
And it looks like the Viking count still very even here, 14-12. Fantasy now has a Viking advantage. He's going to be able to pick off the battlecruisers as well with proper micro here. And Flash, he has lost his battlecruiser army.
I'm pretty sure he had the Yamada Cannon that he could have used before all the Ravens and the Widow Mine shots went off on the battlecruisers. I'm just surprised that he didn't use it.
So Fantasy has taken a supply advantage. He's got a unit composition advantage as well. The single Marauder won't be able to do too much here. Fantasy is going to be able to secure the space over here. He's also taking the gold base. Again, this is what you're talking about. He needs to take 2 bases at once. And because he's able to do that, he's going to eventually be able to have a better economy than his opponent. Flash now, he's only got up to 4 bases compared to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of Fantasy.
Yeah, but this is still looking hard for Fantasy as he's going to have to give up the middle base no matter what. And there's a lot of battlecruisers stacking up, so he needs to pick them off one by one as the battle happens. And even if he loses a lot of Vikings, if he can take out the battlecruisers, it doesn't matter as he's going to win the game. Eventually, one of the battlecruisers getting attacked and taken out.
Yep, the Widow Mine's continuing to run at this army here. Can they burrow in time? Looks like they're going to be able to burrow. A lot of Vikings get sniped off here. And once again, Fantasy takes the air advantage by utilizing the Widow Mines. We had up to 18 Widow Mines at once from Fantasy. I've never really been able to see them used in this way before, but...
And look at this Hellbats, killed up to 16 SCVs, one of them, and the second one probably has a lot more. Look at this, SCV count, 58 to 28 SCVs.
And Flash moving into the
Fantasy is everywhere this game.
He is, man. His multitasking is superb. Now moving in, trying to strike
Flash
at the main base.
Look at the supply, 189 to 128. Fantasy Flash, he only has 3 battlecruisers behind this. The Widow Mines and the Vikings will take everything out.
Oh, a lot of splash damage going on there, but the battlecruisers once again fall. Flash, It looks like he may have been defeated here. He had a nice, solid advantage, but JG is called. Fantasy wins game number 1 over Flash.
Well, that's how you defeat battle cruisers in this game, as Flash, he soloed Little Mice, and he just didn't react well because he had a lot of battle cruisers, and he could have won the game if he just stacked up on the number of battle cruisers.
You know what, man? Sometimes games just cast themselves, and this is one of those games, man.
Fantasy did an amazing job staying aggressive. I really liked it because he knew that he had to keep the battle cruiser count down every single time when he faced Flash in the middle of the map, and he did so.
Indeed, so the score now 1-0 with SK Telecom in the lead over KT Rolster. The next set is going to be Saxtree versus Stats on New Fighting Spirit. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back after this commercial break.